All right, folks, we are here at GAIN, the Generative AI News Rundown. We do this every week. And I'm Brett Kinsella, host of VoiceBot.ai, or the founder of VoiceBot.ai and Synthedia. I have my colleague Eric Schwartz from VoiceBot.ai, and we have a big show this week. Nvidia is in the news. ChatGPT, OpenAI, every week, new stuff. TikTok, Spotify, Google Search Generative Experience, the competitor to Bing Chat. We're going to talk about that. A lawyer that got in a little bit of trouble using ChatGPT, and a few other things as well. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's been a week we've done this that there's been a slow news week. And this week, not different in that way.
Yes, a very big week. Okay, so a lot of fun going on. I should tell people, I know a lot of people are going to be organizing right now and getting, just entering the live stream. If you're on YouTube or you're on LinkedIn, give us a shout out. Let us know you're here. We factor the comments into our discussion. Sometimes we talk about them directly. Sometimes they add a lot to the discussion. Sometimes we answer questions. So please do that. I'll mention that again, once again, in the time. And I think we should get right to it. Our first story this week is around Nvidia. And I think we can start with the idea that they hit 1 trillion in market cap. And they also made a couple of large announcements, one around a new gaming solution and the other around advertising. But what are your thoughts on Nvidia?
Yeah, we've said before, I think, that Nvidia's been around a long time. It's not like they're scrappy new startup or anything, but the rapid explosion in generative AI adoption and interest has really added some nitro to their fuel, and it's not surprising they hit $1 billion. They've been very keen on developing both the hardware and software.
You mean a trillion?
A trillion, sorry. Wow. Yeah, billion. I know it's small change to them now. It's not a surprise that they got there. It's not a surprise that they're it's at least partly because of generative AI and AI technology in general. They have. If they aren't building the hardware themselves, they have a lot of tools for everyone else. It's a good time to be an investor in Nvidia. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was just showing the that video. I'll bring it back up. I don't even know. See if you can hear this. You can tell me if there's audio for this. Yeah, it should work. No, it's a little long. Can you hear that?
We are thrilled to showcase an immersive and dynamic interaction between a player Kai and a non-playable character named Jin. This captivating ramen shop
first thing I can
was
tell
created
you,
by
I couldn't tell the
Nvidia
difference
using the
between
latest RTX
the
rendering
metahuman person and the real human player.
Nvidia collaborated with Convey, an Nvidia
the
Inception partner, to showcase how developers will soon be able to use Nvidia Riva, Nemo, and Audio to Face for AI-powered speech, conversation, and animation. These models were integrated into the Convey Services platform and fed into Unreal Engine 5 and MetaHuman to bring Jin to life.
And they mentioned several Nvidia products in one go.
Yes, exactly. There you go.
Hey, Jen, how are you?
Unfortunately, not so good.
How come?
I am worried about the crime around here. It's gotten bad lately. My ramen shop got caught in the crossfire.
Can I help?
If you want to do something about this, I have heard rumors that the powerful crime lord Kuman Aoki is causing all sorts of chaos in the city. He may be the root of this violence.
I'll talk to him. Where can I find him?
I have heard he hangs out in the underground fight clubs on the city's east side. Try there.
Okay, I'll go.
Be careful, Kai.
Okay, so that's all we need to see of that. But I thought that was really fun. If you have not worked in the area of conversational AI and interactive conversation, then it might not be as amazing as it is to some of us who have done that. There's a couple people in the stream right now who have done a lot of this. That's an open-ended conversation. It handled it very well. And I think it just shows that Nvidia is really pushing the envelope, and they did this with a bunch of partners as well. It's not just that, but they've got 3 elements of their generative AI solution: Nemo for large language model. They've got the audio to face, which actually matches up the speech with the dialogue track, and then they've got the generative voice synthesis, which I think is better than it used to be. That was really just my concept, or my
Riva's they've been improving it pretty steadily since it came out, and I think it's very obvious they've been developing all of these things both separately and in tandem. So looking for ways to have one help the other, and I think that's pretty clear. I think even just at the end there, saying I'll go and then have him saying something to you as you're leaving, it's more than just a closer of the conversation. It's like it's in response to what the player was saying, that they're going to go there. If the player said, "Oh, I'm going to avoid that," they probably wouldn't say good luck. They would have said something else.
Exactly. So let's see here. Yeah, so that was a very natural conversation. I definitely suggest people check it out. I put in the comments where you can find our article right up on that. But Nvidia using 3 different of their solutions plus third-party solutions integrated all through Omniverse. So that's actually their 4th solution that shows up in there, and making it easier for game makers to do this. I think it's a really big step forward for them. Plus, one of my takeaways here is they're going to have trouble competing in the generalized large language model text image space, I think, because there's other people who are really focused on that. Plus, OpenAI has a really big lead in the generalized space. But now they're taking a market that knows them well and they know well, and they're turning it into a solution set that I think is just going to be easy for people to trust and adopt. And that's the game industry.
Yeah, and I think it's also telling that they're embracing several types of technology. I mean, it's as much as people are now joking about how the metaverse didn't really exactly take off the way Mark Zuckerberg wanted. There's all these elements of having generative AI and the metaverse and synthetic voices all together that I think it's that comprehensive solution that is going to attract more interest certainly from investors, obviously.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Mitch Lieberman, who knows a lot about this space, he actually has an interesting comment in the chat. Could NVIDIA take the Apple approach and own the stack from bottom up straight through the AI experience management that I just invented to a new MQ? Yes, you may have, but I think the answer is no, but maybe. I guess it's possible. So I think that if you think about the games themselves, they're not going to own the game boxes, although they have had one, for a while, which is not that popular. They're not going to own the PCs. They're not going to own the mobile phones. And so that one point in the stack is definitely broken down. Plus, they actually are, they're the chip, and then they're the orchestrating software, it seems to me, and then some feature enhancements. And then they use all these other software partners together. So I actually think that they're taking much more of a Microsoft DOS, Microsoft Windows approach, and that they're providing some components including hardware, which Microsoft didn't do, but they're providing some components and they're relying on their partners to do others.
Yeah, and they don't have to own the entire stack if they own some integral, crucial bits along the way. Then, and certainly, even if it's not the only one, if they're the best one, then it seems like they don't have. Yeah, because they don't have to own the whole thing to be the source for everyone else to go to when they want to engage with this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that wasn't the only thing that we heard from NVIDIA this week. In fact, there were several things we're going to highlight a second. And that's they partnered with WPP. So WPP, one of the big agency holding companies, marketing, advertising, that type of thing. And they've created a new solution that they're going to roll out. They're going to make available to their customers. And that solution basically combines a lot of creative tools together using NVIDIA Picasso, which is a text image generator, working with Adobe and presumably Firefly, but also the Adobe Creative Suite, I think, is the more important element there. They're going to have, and Adobe Images as well. They're going to have Getty Images as well. But the idea here is, again, Omniverse is here. It's that connective tissue between all these different types of software. And WPP is going to create this solution. They're using it in-house now. And essentially what they're doing is they're creating digital twins of products using these technologies. And then they're using the generative AI to either add things or to create scenes that you can run through for still images and for moving images, so video, film, that type of thing. And I think it's a really interesting play for NVIDIA to go and sign up a really big agency and have them as a partner to bring something to market like this.
Yeah, and they're not the only ones certainly exploring this. There are some smaller brands, so some startups that have been playing around with placing items into videos so that you can change around what your sponsors are and have it look like different products are in the room with the people even without refilming it. And I think that this kind of flexible sort of the dynamic advertising that we've seen pop up more and more in audio, applying it to other kinds of media is definitely going to bring a lot of money, certainly from the companies who want to get ahead, who want to get ahead with using this kind of technology for their business.
Well, it looks really cool. You guys can watch the video. We also have an article in Synthedia and in, I think, have you done VoiceBot yet? But either way, you can go to Synthedia and I think VoiceBot as well. But it's really interesting. A couple things. It's not actually available yet. It seemed like a little premature maybe that they announced it. But one other thing I wanted to mention is WPP is going to use it to have higher productivity. I've talked to a few agency heads recently, and they're all thinking about this idea of higher productivity. Some of them are thinking about, how do I go to market, help my customers do this? And WPPs are going to do that. They're going to bring this to their market. They're going to actually make this capability available to their customers. But it looks like there's pricing pressure right now. And there's a lot of the buyers of agency services who are saying, hey, it's tough times, the economic contraction. I need better pricing from you. And so generative AI came along just in time to give better productivity for creative services. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, if over time generative AI makes these agencies less important because it's easier to do some of these things in-house with your in-house marketing team, it could be that WPP is really set up nicely to provide a solution to their clients that they can use, to offset maybe some of the drawdown that's going to happen or the loss that they're going to happen in marketing services. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right, especially as you said, the pricing pressure. I think there's going to be interest not only in how good the technology is, but how cheap and how fast it can be done. If this can be the equivalent of a word search and replace on a marketing article that's being put out online, then I think that's going to be very attractive to companies looking to cut those costs.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on. NVIDIA's been really interesting, from a development standpoint. I wrote an article in Synthedia a couple months ago. Basically, the headline was NVIDIA, the new giant in generative AI. And it really is heading in that direction. There's particularly if it can stick to some niches where it's really strong, and then they have the underlying infrastructure, all the graphic processing units. If you look at the Andreessen Horowitz analysis 3 months ago, they looked at NVIDIA as one of the clear winners so far, just because so many people are running computational load on GPUs and buying a lot of them. I think we had a session about Twitter buying 30,000, maybe it was 10,000 GPUs, or 30,000 GPUs, something like that a few weeks ago. Obviously their key competitor there is Google with the TPU, and people are building on that architecture, but really interesting. Okay, so it's another week and OpenAI doesn't sleep, I guess. So they have, they've been doing this for a long time. So a lot of things have been in the pipeline that are just starting to come to fruition now. Improving mathematical reasoning with process supervision. So they trained a model to achieve what they say new state-of-the-art in mathematical problem solving by rewarding each correct step of reasoning. That's what they call process supervision. instead of simply rewarding the correct final answer. So that's what they call outcome supervision. So what they've done before is they've said, oh, you asked a question, you put a prompt in, was the answer good or not? And so the human feedback in that, the real reinforcement learning human feedback, focuses on the outcome. Is the outcome good? This new solution focuses on process supervision. And so that's each step. And that's really important for, as they say, boosting performance for process supervision. And there's an alignment benefit. And that is it directly trains the model to produce chain of thought. People have heard about chain of thought a little bit. That's endorsed by humans. And what this does ultimately is it helps them. And there's an article here too, or there's a research paper that you can look at. One of the things it's doing is helping the systems perform better with math. And this has been one of the things where they were surprised for a while that, it could do basic math, but then as like you went into more complex things, it just didn't work. GPT-4 seems to work better, but it's because it's seen more examples than previous versions. But this reasoning approach that they're doing, this process supervision, is really fascinating and could actually turn these, chatbots into something like far more powerful than we're seeing today.
Yeah, this is OpenAI's MO in general, to keep pushing out new things that sometimes it is like a more obvious, like new feature that, of course the iOS app and everything, but now it's sort of hinting at how they're going to keep developing these tools and how they can be used, or, providing information for, especially those who are on the more technical side of things, to get them ready for what's going to be coming and what they want people to understand about what the capabilities of their models. And I think this is pointing toward what, as you said, the sort of power that they believe can be a part of the products that eventually come from it.
Exactly. So we've got this idea of the knowing and doing assistant, which I talked about. If anybody hasn't listened to that interview I did with Adam Chire, by the way, in the VoiceBot podcast, go check that out. Maybe Andrew, you can pop a link into the chat on how they can do that. Just do the one from the voicebot.ai channel, and probably be the easiest one to do in podcasts. But he talks about the knowing and doing assistants, and ChatGPT is really excellent at the knowing. You think about something like, Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, they focused on the doing, like being able to execute tasks and things like that. And you want to marry the two. But there's this other thing about knowing, and that's reasoning. And I kind of think this might be a third element here that we haven't really explored in depth. And I think this is fascinating. It could make these far more powerful. Now, everybody, I just want to let you know, if you just joined, this is the Generative AI News Rundown. We do this every Thursday at noon Eastern time. We try to take, it used to be we'd take 30 minutes, but now it's like almost always 45 to an hour. But we go through the top stories of the week. Eric and I get to chat about it, the reporting that we've done, add in some stories maybe that don't make it into the news because, we talk to a lot of people, and, hopefully add a little bit of context. And you're here, so you can add comments, and that provides even more a richer element to this broadcast. So definitely please add some comments, ask questions, those types of things. We try to have a little fun with this as well. Anything you want to put up there, we'll at least take a look at. I don't know if I'll show up on screen. But if you're in YouTube or LinkedIn, give us a shout out. Oh, by the way, if you're in LinkedIn, most of our group is in LinkedIn. There is a comment in LinkedIn that has a link to this live stream. Could you just go in, just click that real quick and just give us a like on this video, on this live stream? I would appreciate it. All right, folks, let's move on I want to do one other thing because people have been asking about this. So I'm going to show my screen. I'm going to do like a real-time demo today. By the way, at the YouTube channel, YouTube/the @VoiceBotAI, we've actually been doing more product reviews, product demonstrations, because we've been getting a lot of beta access, early access. And people are saying, hey, what's this like? So I've been trying to do a little bit of screen capture on this. But one of the things people have been asking about is Bing Search and ChatGPT, which just came out last week. In fact, I think as of the last gain, I didn't even have access yet. I got it sometime late Thursday. So if you are a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, you'll have this choice between the 3.5 model, which is the standard one. And that's what everybody who's got the free version uses, or the GPT-4 model, which is more loquacious, better in a lot of things, but slower, high latency. But then you also have these selections. So a lot of you saw that I did a couple videos on the plugins. So definitely check those out in the VoiceBot YouTube channel. I think those will give you a good overview about how that works and actually talk through some of the limitations of that, because there are some issues. But we have this browse used to be the web search model a few weeks ago. This changed last week during build, or right after build, to Bing search. So I'm going to select that. And I thought, Eric, what we would do is let's just do 2 different searches. So actually, let's start with something. Let's start with the default, and we'll say, who won the Monaco Grand Prix in 2023. This will be a test. I haven't tried this in GPT-4, but as I expected, I'm sorry, it only has information up through 2021. So I could ask who won it in 2017. So see if it can answer that question. It should be able to. Sebastian Vettel won driving for Ferrari. Is that right? I think that might be a hallucination, but okay. You Sebastian Vettel fans can check that.
All right. It was not. The Monaco Grand Prix. Sorry, yeah, it was Lewis Hamilton won the other one. Sorry. Go on.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton won in 2017. Is that correct? I don't know. We could look at it. I actually thought it was Hamilton, but that I don't.
Oh no, you're right. It's Sebastian Vettel won the race. It was Ferrari's first one. Yeah, sorry, it was the other Grand Prix that the other guy won.
All right, great. So it was right. All right, excellent. So this is with Bing. So who won the Grand Prix in 2023? So now what you're going to see is it's going to show you it's thinking, and we can. Look, it's browsing the web. It's looking for answers. It's actually, here's a link that it's actually going to. That's your source that has the information. Max Verstappen won the Monaco Grand Prix. This is in actually one of the demos I did, really focused on Google search generative experience. But you can actually click through. There's a little source citation there. So it knows, and it's actually going out with real time. It's not actually as good. You can look at the other videos to see what it looks like to do this in Bing Chat. It's not as rich of an experience as you get for Bing Chat for the responses, but it's functional. So I thought that would be interesting to show everybody. Okay, so along those lines, we have Google SGE. Eric Schwartz, what is Google SGE?
So this is their new conversational search solution. They hinted at it, or they talked a little bit about it at I/O, but it's the Google Search Labs. Sorry, it comes from Google Search Labs, I should say, and it's called the Google Search Generative Experience. So obviously keeping with the branding, and the idea is that it's supposed to combine Google's obviously very powerful search capabilities with the generative AI conversational experience that Microsoft's been pushing with Bing. So it's not at the point necessarily of replacing Google search, but it's supposed to be more of a supplement, an answer engine for when you're asking more of a direct question rather than obviously looking for a specific website. And it seems, from Brett, as you did a test of this, and from what I can tell, it seems to be not quite at the level where you're going to get rid of Perplexity or some of the other ones you've experimented with. But when Google says they're going to build a search product, you assume that it's going to eventually be as powerful or as attractive to users as its regular search engine has been for the last, God knows how many years, 20 years now.
Well, this is one of the things, right? Whatever Google rolls out in generative AI, that's what most people are going to use, because people are using Google search. If you want to use generative AI based or conversational search today, you have to seek it out. You have to be motivated. You have to be aware that it's an option. You have to go to it. Now, a lot of people know ChatGPT, but they don't know necessarily to use Bing Chat. So maybe people are trying that, or they've heard about Perplexity. I did a video on that as well, because I think that's pretty amazing what they've done over there over the last couple of weeks. But whatever Google rolls out, is what people are going to be able, or what most people are going to be exposed to first, which I thought was really interesting. So now I did an extensive video. I think it's like 15 minutes, and I compared it to Bard and ChatGPT with Bing, and then Bing. So you can see that in there. And I thought what I would do is, that's actually a little bit harder for me to demo live because you have to use the Chrome beta browser, and like right now we're streaming live on something that like the beta browser doesn't necessarily support fully. But I thought I would just bring up a couple moments of this in order to use it. And I want to say what his Tapas looks like. The first thing you're going to notice is, hey, you get this generative solution. It's basically taking information from a number of different websites and it's providing you a summary of what Tapas is. Now, it has information over here to the left. You should think of these as your source links, but you might notice that it doesn't actually tell you which item in the response comes from which of these source links. Now, below you have something you might expect. You've got the dictionary response other people are asking for in terms of search, and then you have your blue links, your traditional search results. Okay, so you can ask a follow-up question. This is supposed to be conversational search, but they're giving you ideas of what other people have asked. And so how are you supposed to eat Tapas? Once again, it's going to go out. It's going to look at multiple web pages that talk about this, and it's going to give you some sort of summary. It's usually in the afternoon or late at night. Okay, so we see the information here. Let's see, what is the most popular tapas restaurant in Barcelona? Okay, so again, we're going to just see how it responds. Is it going to give us a list? Is it going to give us some sort of summary? It's going to give us a list. Now, look over to the right here. We would have all sorts of Google results that give us the 10 best tapas restaurants in Barcelona, best tapas bars, right? This is what we would expect. This gives us an actual list of tapas places. And I'm going to actually challenge it a little bit. I'm going to say, how do I make a reservation at the first option? So it actually came up and it gave me the Bodega Biarritz, which was the first one. Sometimes this will work, sometimes it won't. I have another longer video where it actually does a really nice job of. Okay, so that's enough of that. People can check that out on the YouTube channel. Maybe Andrew, you can put a link to both of those. This is the shorter one. I did like I don't know what that is, 4.5 minutes, which just gave people a quick intro to how Google Search Generative Experience works. That's what you just saw. So there's a few more examples in there. And then I do a longer one where it goes through the entire thing, like how you sign up with Search Labs and what it looks like when you start, but then also run through the same scenario on 4 different generative search options. And, I think it's a really nice side-by-side comparison. If you haven't seen it yet, or if you just want to see it side-by-side, definitely go check that out. My key takeaway here is that it's good enough. Is it as good as Bing Search or Bing Chat? I would say no, although it is more visually pleasing. So there's sort of an interesting UX dichotomy here that they've come up with. Bing Chat originally, the first few weeks when it was rolled out, when I was like part of the, I think it was it alpha or beta then? It was pre-general availability. Maybe it was a beta. It seemed to be integrated more into traditional Bing search over on the side. They actually changed the UI. So it's like, if you're in Bing Chat, you're really in a chat experience. It doesn't really look like search. You can scroll down and get to the regular search experience, but it's not integrated. Like some of you may be familiar with like u.com, like how they did that. That was like the original rollout that they had. But you see here with Google Generative Search, it really looks like search. It just happens to have your answer box at the top.
Yeah, it feels a lot like almost more just a better version of the answer box than it does a fully conversational experience, at least in the form it is now. But I think that it's pretty obvious that that interactive element is something that Google's building toward. And as I think you mentioned in the Synthedia piece, it's not a surprise that Google's been working on this, but it was something that Google had been talking about probably in the longer term. And now, as much as with Bard and some of its other generative AI products, it feels very rushed, or at least like they're trying to show something to the public and just to say like, don't go away, we have this, and then they'll put out the improvements as quickly as they can.
Well, I just think that there's this whole concept of skeuomorphism. When you adopt a new technology paradigm, what can you borrow from the old paradigm that makes it familiar to people? And I kind of feel like ChatGPT sort of upended this a little bit, because so many people became familiar with that. They're okay with that sort of chat experience. And they're just like, oh, with source links and real-time internet, that's great. But Google looking at, hey, a lot of people are comfortable with the way search works. We have a great franchise there. Let's just integrate it. I think it's really kind of fascinating. And I just pulled this up because if you haven't used Google Bard, I assume most of the people who are here probably have, but this is the way Google Bard looks. This looks a lot like what you just saw when I was showing you ChatGPT, right, on the screen. You know, of course, it's in dark mode. You can do light mode, but like these are both dark mode. And the one, three, we'll just do the same question. And so it comes back with, oh, this is nice. It gave us the answer, but it told us Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon also finished on the podium. We have this way where you can download it to docs and these types of things. But this is search, right? This hit like a real-time search engine, but it doesn't feel like search. It feels a lot more like chat. And I think that that's really interesting, because what we think of is like, what was Bard supposed to be? Was Bard supposed to be the Bing chat because it's like their search engine? Was it supposed to be the ChatGPT? What I think Google has surmised is that ChatGPT, that chat experience, is something that people like, and we're going to have Bard for that. And Bard's going to do all the other generative stuff. Like you can do this in actually the search generative experience. It'll actually do poems for you and things like that. You guys should check that out when you get access. But when you move to search, so you've got the chat experience. Interactive, has some search elements, but it's not the pure search experience. And then you've got Bing Chat and Google SGE. So at first I was thinking, why are they doing two? But I get it. I really get it. They think that there's two different experiences here that they want to deliver. Maybe over time they'll fuse into one. Yeah,
and it's not a bad instinct necessarily. I mean, we've talked before about DuckDuckGo playing around with generative AI, in their case, pulling answers from Wikipedia to the search response page, which I think is something that certainly people who want to use a service like DuckDuckGo, that's what they want. They want quick, immediate answers. They don't need to have a whole conversation necessarily. And I think there is that sort of speed aspect to what Google's trying by skipping some of the other elements of the citations and so on. But I do think that Google is going to need to appeal to, as you know, multiple audiences, multiple kinds of users in order to maintain its enormous market share and not have too many nibbles taken away from it by Bing and by Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, fun stuff. Search is changing. It is one of the things generative AI is having the biggest impact on right now. It is one of the most important utilities that we have. Some people say like everything ultimately is search or payments. So, we'll see, but really fascinating. And if you look at the way they have Bard and Google SGE and Bing Chat, those all look like there's going to be very robust solutions that are going to be free. And and then ChatGPT you can do for free, but I think over time it's mostly going to be people are using it for subscription. And by the way, we'll do something else on this for next week, but someone had an interview with Sam Altman last week, and one of the things he said was, we're not going to compete with our customers except for with ChatGPT. So he's saying, hey, this is an application area that we've put a stake in the ground. We have a lot of momentum there. So we're going to do some things there, whether he holds to that or not. But in general, if you're building things outside of the general purpose chatbot, they're saying there's not going to be an OpenAI solution. You can use their models. Don't worry about competition from your technology provider, which I also thought was very interesting. And we'll do a little bit more on that for next week. Okay. Oh, also in the search realm, we best not forget your article about Perplexity AI, the new Copilot. I showed some of this in a video for the desktop, but this is now also, they have an Android app.
Yeah, and it's funny how Copilot has obviously largely because of Microsoft become such a word for describing the kind of assistant that it's not an assistant, it's a Copilot. It's there to support you and help guide you through things. But Perplexity, which we've written about a few times, certainly has been continually upgrading. I would say their generative AI chatbot with their services and done some really impressive stuff. And now with Copilot, they are offering access to GPT-4, at least a little bit of access. That's 5 responses every 4 hours, I believe, so that even if you're not a ChatGPT Plus subscriber, you can still have some ability to use that more advanced, more powerful model. And of course, it's using not just the web, but also Wolfram Alpha to get answers. And it's really pushing this sort of more comprehensive tool that not only will it answer your questions, but it'll provide the citations, it'll give you the links, it'll tell you where to find more information. It'll suggest follow-up questions for you to ask, as well as, of course, remember have enough context to answer any other follow-up questions. It's really it's very easy to start using Perplexity and then stay in it when you're trying to do other things, even if it's not the immediate reason that you open up the chatbot. So I quite like it, honestly.
It's really good. I think that the challenge we have with Perplexity, and I have a little announcement to make as well. The challenge we're going to have with Perplexity is, will enough people be aware of it? Will they seek it out? Will they choose it over their existing habits, predominantly Google? Some people are trying out Bing, sort of, they didn't have a huge market share either. But I think Perplexity is one of the most interesting solutions that we have out there. Oh, and by the way, I'll just tell you guys first, because you're here. We're going to do a Synthedia 3 event. Some of you guys know we did Synthedia 1 and 2 in the fall. It's going to be on June 27th at 12 noon. It's going to go for 3 hours. And one of our headliners is going to be the CEO of Perplexity, Aravind Srivanas, is going to be joining us right in that first hour. And I think you're going to love it because they're doing some really interesting things that have not made it out yet. So they haven't announced it yet. And we're going to talk about all these types of things. So if you guys want to sign up for that, just go to bit.ly/Synthedia 3. And Synthedia, that's the number 3, Synthedia 3. So I haven't announced it anywhere yet. It's actually going to start being announced next week. We will have a cap on the number of people who can do it. It's free. It's an online conference, but it's free. We're going to have some amazing other guests as well. But if you guys sign up, you're here, so you can get a thing. And even if you can't make it, actually, if you want to get early access to the video and some of the data we're going to share around it afterwards, probably just register so that we have you on the list. Okay, and Dave Gerbino just said also, SGE is now available in the standard Chrome browser. I think it was not a week ago. I couldn't get it to work, and they said in the instructions you had to use the Chrome beta, but I'm glad that he's been able to use it. Maybe you'll be able to use it once you get that. If you sign up, you have to go to Search Labs, Google Search Labs, to sign up for access. When you get the email, definitely check it out. I think it's really interesting. I will definitely use it, and it might be actually the feature that keeps me more in tune with Google, because I've already told people that probably it used to be half of, probably 2/3, 3/4 of my browsing now is either in Bing Chat or Perplexity, and maybe just a quarter for Google. Usually when I'm just going to a direct link or I just need something very general and I don't really know what I'm looking for. But maybe I'll start using this again, because SGE is actually pretty good and good enough. Could be all they need, because it's still better than what we had in the past, and we'll get people introduced to it. Mitch Lavery, I want to move on to another topic, but you keep putting up such good questions. Does Perplexity have a Neva problem? So Neva famously just shut down operations. They were supposed to be a Google search competitor. And one of the really telling things that the CEO said, he said it was actually easier to find people to pay for a better search experience than it was to get them to get the masses at scale to change habits, even if it were free. we're trying to give it away for free. People said, hey, we'd like to pay for this, keep it live, but we just couldn't get to the scale. So the question is, does Perplexity have a NEVA problem? And I think not yet. I mean, I think everyone faces that same problem in that Google is so embedded into habits and it's so widely adopted. That's going to be the first place people go. And like, to get them to try something else, they have to change their habit. They have to know about it. Then they have to try it and like it. And then they have to change their habits to sort of, factor it in. I will say that NEVA did not have a generative AI solution. It was not a conversational search in the way that we're seeing things today. So it might have just been too early, might have had the wrong technology. Will Perplexity get over that hump? I don't know, but I actually have a sense that it could, because it is such a good user experience. Eric?
I mean, I would agree. I think it's not so much a NEVA problem as it is. It needs either whatever the killer app might be, or some particular niche purpose. I think about web browsers obviously being a good analogy of once there started to be competitors for Internet Explorer, it was quickly took off, and for some people it seems like, I'm sure it seems like Google Chrome is beating everyone else, but honestly, depending on what you want to do on the web, I mean, I have been forever a Mozilla, a Firefox user, and I still prefer it just because it seems to have everything I want more.
I know you don't change. This is your perfect example. You don't change your habit. Like, Firefox has been an inferior browser, except for a couple of features. There are a couple of features they have which are excellent, but
it's also a matter of the hardware you use. I mean, right now, obviously, it doesn't matter. It's all in the cloud, but if you want to have generative AI embedded on your computer, obviously Microsoft's trying to make that so easy that you don't even have to go online to use Bing or essentially OpenAI's tools. But if Perplexity can offer something better, then at least the people who try it are going to stick with it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I just put, if people haven't checked it out, it's just perplexity.ai. So there's a really good desktop app. They have the new Android app. That's the news over the past week. And they have an iPhone app. I think that the Android I was actually playing with a few days ago. They just announced it, but it was available before then. I guess I stumbled upon it like I have a couple of times. But the Android app is actually, at the time, which would have been like 5 days ago, was far more capable than the iOS app. The iOS didn't have the Copilot in it yet. So there's some other features. The layouts weren't quite as good. But I assume that they're now going to come back and they're going to update the iOS app, maybe just in time for WWDC. Who knows? Okay, so we have to move on to our next story. And one of the things that I find is the most popular when I publish in Synthedia, when we publish in voicebot.ai, is funding rounds. People like to know who's getting money. And another thing that people really care about is they care about Google. So anytime Google comes up, or ChatGPT or OpenAI or Microsoft comes up, they read those more. Well, we have a story that combines the two. Eric, tell me about Runway.
Yeah, so Runway is an interesting company. They're a startup. They use generative AI for specifically video, and they've gotten a lot of attention because they apparently very smartly quickly came out with an iOS app so that you could use these video-to-video generative AI tools. It will basically, you can film a video of anything and it will transform it into a different style. And by different style, I mean turning people into puppets level of different style using generative AI. And it's pretty impressive. It's not the free version is quite limited, but if you're willing to pay, I think it's like $144 a year, you can get enough credits to really create some really fun videos. And now it seems that Google wants to be involved in creating using generative AI to create videos, and put in quite a lot of money as part of this new $100 million funding round, it seems. But what's particularly interesting is that it's now sort of in competition with Amazon, because it was only a few months ago that Runway said that they were going to be scaling their research and coming up with new ideas using Amazon Web Services. And now it looks like Google is going to be their new partner. So it's not sure. It's not clear if there's going to be more of a tug of war, I guess, over what Runway's doing and where it's hosting its technology. Brett, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. So Joseph Susskind just said he installed the new Android app. I don't know if he meant the Perplexity app.
I think he's referring to Perplexity, or
well, no. Well, he can tell us. Just tell us which one you just installed. So Perplexity or Runway. I'd be interested to know that, because this is like sometimes there's people respond to something the previous segment. So yes, cloud wars, a big part of this whole thing. And look at what Google is doing. Google 6 months ago was all about Google AI research. We're really focused on what we're doing. Imagine Funaki in the video space, at that time Lambda, and now Palm in the large language model space. What have we seen? They put a lot of money, I think it's $300 million so far, into Anthropic in the large language model, a direct competitor to their Palm large language model. And they're putting money into Runway. And Runway is a separate app and all these types of things. A consumer, it's things that Google doesn't necessarily do very well at, these types of things sometimes, but this type of popularity contest is not necessarily their thing. They're really good at utilities. In any event, what they're doing is they're making these investments, I think, as an option. They're buying an option, essentially. And that option is, one, is they're getting these companies to use Google Cloud for their computing. And so there's that element. And a lot of the money that they're putting in is actually just cloud computing credits. Not that they don't have costs associated with it. They do, but it's not the same as like putting in cold hard cash. The other thing is, by doing this, they're keeping their big competitors out of the funding round and out of the funding or the cap table for these companies. And so this is part of their strategy right now. They've got a lot of money. Now, all these players have a lot of money, but if they put the money in and one of these solutions just takes off, maybe Anthropic's just huge and becomes bigger than OpenAI, who's going to have the seat at the table to do the acquisition or the 49% or just keep Amazon and Azure out of there? It's going to be Google.
Yeah, the cloud element, because it gets talked about sometimes, but the computational power required for especially some of these larger models is not insignificant. So any of the cloud providers that can offer a better deal to the startups with the hot new models or technology that it exploits those models is going to have an edge, and as Google seems to have done, it can lure away even a company that's already theoretically signed up with a rival.
Yeah, absolutely. Kudos to Dave Gerbino. He's putting a lot of good things in here in terms of the SGE experience. He says it might be because he's a Google One subscriber, and talked about the Perplexity app, also compatible with Chrome OS apps. Laptops. That's very helpful. And I think just returning to Runway, it's just this perfect example of synthetic media, generative AI, what it's doing for entertainment. Everybody's sort of focused on these business use cases, and I am too, because that's a lot of the people that are here today. That's what we've been doing for a long time. But these entertainment use cases, whether it's these interactive bots as companions as opposed to knowledge engines and do engines, or it's some of these image and video generators or manipulators, modifiers that are just allowing people to do really cool things. And so that's one of the amazing tools that we have from generative AI. Now, you have another story this week in that consumer space. Maybe Runway, Runway's kind of a competitor to TikTok in its own way, although like TikTok's also distribution for it. But tell us about what's going on with TikTok and Taco.
Yes, I think Taco. It's still very, very early at this point, but it's been found that TikTok has begun playing around with a generative AI chatbot named Taco. It's not totally clear what sort of timeline there is, but because at the moment it seems like a sort of alpha test going on for users in the Philippines. But it seems to be less about creating the videos than it is about navigating TikTok. TikTok is very famously an entirely opaque way of finding videos for you. I mean, you can search for specific videos, but if you're just scrolling through, it's not really clear how it figures out what to show you next, besides based on what you've already seen. So something that can help you find videos that are interesting and like talk you through different projects. The example they give is if you're looking at different food items, it'll you can ask for a recipe and it will direct you not only to a video about that food, but a video about making that food, which is not the same thing, but definitely helpful. So it seems like TikTok's wanting to expand beyond just entertainment, or at least beyond sort of random entertainment, and more into being a video guide to the world, the way almost like YouTube in a way, it sounds like. But
of course, like YouTube's the 800-pound gorilla. I mean, it makes total sense to me. And what have they done? They've put a Copilot in. I think we were talking about that earlier. I can't, was it Paul Sweeney maybe who put that in there earlier about Copilots? It's your Copilot for your wonderful TikTok viewing experience. And what happens if you have a Copilot? If you're bored or you don't like what you're seeing, you spend more time on TikTok, which is exactly what they want. It's all attention now. So I think that is fascinating. All right, folks, we got a couple segments coming up. Spotify, ChatGPT, and the law, a lawyer who ran a little run-in, and then we're going to do winners and losers of the week. It's a new segment. Before I do that, just want to let people know on LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, there's the first comment has a link to this live show in YouTube. If you wouldn't mind just clicking that and going in and liking it for us, that would be really, and you can go back to LinkedIn, that's fine. But if you do that, that would be really helpful. And if you're in LinkedIn, like the video, of course, I'm sure you already have, but also subscribe to the channel. We've got a lot of really good stuff in there, and like it's helpful to us if we have subscribers. You get notified, but also it helps with the algorithm. So always appreciate that. Also, we have Synthedia 3 coming up, which we have not announced, but I guess we sort of announced it here. There's a link there. bit.ly/Synthedia 3. You can look at that in the comments, and that's going to bring a lot of really interesting people on stage. We're going to have demos. We're going to talk with some of the leaders and talk about their strategy and how they're competing in the space. It's going to be some things you haven't seen before. Nvidia is going to be there as well. We just signed them up. So Perplexity, Nvidia, and I'll leave the other ones as like a secret, like a little surprise when we do our announcement next week. But hope everyone likes that. Okay, so Spotify. They didn't make an announcement, but one of the executives made a comment this week that you caught.
Yeah, it's one of those things that happen when a company buys another company, and it doesn't necessarily give too much guidance on what if that person is a broadcaster in this case. Bill Simmons, who founded The Ringer, Spotify bought The Ringer back in 2020. He still has his podcast and obviously is high up at Spotify. And he was interviewing Derek Thompson, who's a reporter, about AI generated voice clones and how advanced they become and the different ways it can be used. And they stumbled into discussing how there's already a plan at Spotify to use voice clones for podcast ads specifically, so that instead of podcasters, especially popular ones, having to spend quite a lot of time reading ads and mentioning sponsors and so on, that part of the podcast could be done automatically using a voice clone to read out whatever sponsor they want, and not only would that obviously give more time to the podcaster, but it would mean that they could do a lot more localization, which is something that Spotify has been playing around with and playing ads that are relevant to wherever the person listening is. So you could have your favorite podcaster giving an ad for your a local company rather than just the national or international brands that they usually work with. And Spotify does have the technology for it. They bought Semantic a few years ago, which has a voice clone technology. They've created an AI DJ that uses a voice clone of one of their broadcasters. There's a lot of potential money in this, obviously, for to get advertising dollars for people who spend a lot of time listening to Spotify. So it's an exciting moment for that particular industry.
Yeah, shout out to Zena Qureshi, the CEO, co-founder of Synthetic, AI DJ. Now this coming up, this unannounced new ad product. I think it's great. I mean, the Synthetic was one of the first companies to come out with these really high quality, commercial grade synthetic voices. They were doing, I think they did, was it Val Kilmer?
Val Kilmer, yep.
Yep, the Val Kilmer one. The American actor who lost his voice due to surgery, where he lost his voice box, and like they basically recreated his voice from what he was like when he was in his 30s, which was like great to hear. There's the quality of speech synthesis has gone up so much over the last couple of years. Actually, you had another story about this, which I don't think I even have in the list right now, which is about celebrity voices and things like that. But yeah, shout out to what's going on in Spotify. I think this just makes sense. It's going to be really good for advertisers who just need to do like a tweak or need to do 3,000 variants for this localization. They do one base ad and they're like, and shout out to New York City, shout out to LA, shout out to Copenhagen.
Yeah, the only, limitation obviously is that for a lot of podcasters, it's a pretty rote, just, they read out the text that's in front of them. Some podcasters are well known for adding a lot to it. I think specifically Conan O'Brien's ad readings are apparently particularly high in demand. But the potential, just like even if only if each market only contributes a little bit, the potential, especially at the international level, when you start talking about translations and so on, the potential revenue is just enormous for how much a company will pay to get even a synthetic version of a celebrity or popular podcaster's voice to read an ad for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it lowers the cost for those celebrities as well, because they don't have to be in the studio and that type of thing. We saw that with the Howie Mandel announcement when he did the virtual twin of himself. And so that's going to be like, a lot of these celebrities are going to have these sort of lower cost options. It's going to make them more ubiquitous.
Yeah, well, and it's also that, there are obviously these super high level, enormously popular podcasters, but there's a lot of very niche podcasts that, they may not have the millions and millions of listeners, but they have a very dedicated audience of 20,000 listeners, which is not nothing. And to be able to have someone listening to that podcast hear that person read an ad is obviously more appealing than just switching over to a generic version.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's keep moving because we're coming to almost to the end of our time. But you had another story about ChatGPT lawyering gone wrong.
Yes, this is one of those things where it makes you question how well someone who very educated in one field doing real which is not in itself a terrible idea. If you submit data, ChatGPT can turn it into a pretty formal-looking piece of turn into a document that you might want to submit. But the problem is that if you don't check it over, it'll hallucinate things. And in this case, it hallucinated several cases that never existed. And rather than going through and checking to make sure those cases were real, the lawyer decided to ask ChatGPT if any of it was made up, and ChatGPT said no. The brief was submitted, and unsurprisingly, the judge came down quite hard on that lawyer and that law firm, and now the lawyer is facing some real professional trouble at the moment.
Who's responsible? Is OpenAI responsible?
I would argue probably not, because OpenAI makes it pretty clear when you open ChatGPT, it says, by the way, there may be inaccuracies here. It may make stuff up. It's not, there's concerns about many issues. There's many issues about ChatGPT and OpenAI, but whether or not OpenAI has warned people about hallucinations isn't really one of them. So, it's a note not so much about the technology, but about how it's used, because I wrote a while ago about a judge in South America who used ChatGPT to help write a judgment, to help write his opinion. And notably, in that case, he was using it to help him write it, and then he went over and checked it through, or his clerks did, and made sure there was nothing made up in there. He just used it to help turn his opinion into the appropriate language, which seems much safer than relying on it to actually cite cases, especially if you're not using the version that can access the internet.
This is going to do nothing to reduce the adoption of generative AI in lawyering, because it is such a productivity boost, and I think probably a quality boost. That what happened here is this lawyer treated ChatGPT like he did an associate, and he didn't check their work. Okay. Too bad.
Well,
he should get all of the shame that can be heaped upon him for professional malpractice.
Well, this is why our guest last week talking about Spellbook and about using generative AI for legal cases. The whole point of using those specific products is that they've created these guardrails and all these other ways of making sure that what you're writing doesn't turn into nonsense or have things that are made up in it.
Okay, so winners and losers this week. This is what we're going to do. We're going to try to do this most weeks anyway, but who's your winner this week? Actually, let's start with losers. Who's your loser this week?
I mean, obviously the New York lawyer who's decided to trust ChatGPT more than his own education, apparently, or his own research in writing a brief, I would say.
So I would say a generative AI loser this week might be Unity. Unity's talked a lot about the generative AI tools that they're going to bring to market, or they haven't talked a lot about it. They've talked some about it. Obviously, one of the two giant game engines, two of the biggest, one of the two biggest game engines in the space. And, they have new competition because Nvidia is out there now and they're leading this. And so they're going to have some catching up to do. So that would be my loser for the week. Although I think they can pull it back. I know they're doing some things. They just need to bring them to market. Who's your winner?
I mean, I want to say Runway just because not only are they
1.5 billion valuation.
Yeah. And although I'm sure there's going to be some bad feeling, over at Amazon, the fact of the matter is, as a business, they're in demand, and the big companies want them. And this deal with Google is probably going to last at least for a while. But it's very telling that there is going to be this competition for all these kinds of startups. So Runway, especially, but any other startup that can grab hold of something impressive like that is going to have a lot of competing bids for its attention and its business.
Yes. And so for my winner for this week, and by the way, in the chat, tell us if you want to, what your winners and losers are. I should have asked you that 10 minutes ago, so we could have looked at it. It would have been fun. We'll do that maybe next week. I was going to say Nvidia, they hit $1 trillion. They rolled some things out. Of course, today they're only at 995 billion. So, I can't really give them the winner of the week since they're coming back. But I'm going to bring up another one, and that is the Technology Innovation Institute. It is an institute funded by Abu Dhabi, the government of Abu Dhabi. And they brought out the Falcon 40 billion LLM. We could talk about this more maybe next week because we're going to wrap it up today. But they knocked Meta Lambda off the top spot. So if you look at this is the Open LLM leaderboard is sponsored by Hugging Face. It's for open source large language models, and there's 4 standard tests that Eleuther AI came up with, and it takes the average and they beat out, if you look at that leaderboard, the next 4 after them are all based or some derivative of the Llama model that Meta put out. So, congrats to them. It's sort of out of left field. It wasn't even where they're working on something. They come at the top of the leaderboard. They also have that's a 40 billion model. The Llama ones that most people are using are the 30 billion or the 65 billion parameter models. But TI also came out with a 7 billion model, which doesn't compete quite, is not as strong in that 7 billion range, but still pretty good. But anytime you're at the top of a leaderboard on Hugging Face, probably a good week. You deserve a shout out. Kudos to the folks at Technology Innovation Institute.
Yeah, it's it's amazing how there's this whole other world of open models that I think is in some ways just as exciting as the more lucrative charging versions that are going on over at OpenAI and elsewhere. Well,
their success this week, hitting the top of the leaderboard, compelled me to put them in a new diagram we created around sort of these LLM constellations that are forming out there. That'll come out over the next week, so people will be able to see the analysis there. But congratulations to them. Congratulations to you for coming out this week. Thanks a lot for joining us. Please like and subscribe if you're in the YouTube world. If you're in LinkedIn, like the post too. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for everybody who made comments this week. I'm Brett Kinsella, founder of Synthedia and VoiceBot. voicebot.ai. My colleague Eric Schwartz, head writer at voicebot.ai. I hope you found this useful. We did some demos today. We did videos. We chatted about some articles. We try to bring you the top stories, give you sort of just a little bit more insight than you're going to find in your traditional article. And also, this gives us a really great opportunity every week to update, because we publish, like, some of these stories were published 4 or 5 days ago, and there's news now. So I love that we're able to do this. So join us when you can and make a comment. Let us know you're here. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate doing this again.
Absolutely. Can't wait for next week.